Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me this evening and for allowing me to talk to you. I know some of you, I recognise some faces from the meeting I attended in December. To those of you I don't know who don't know me, my name is Ashleigh Jayes. I'm the manager of the Almonry Museum in Evesham. I'm sure you're all incredibly aware of the building, so forgive me if I am sort of preaching to the choir here, but I thought I'd just give you a little bit of background about the museum, about the building's history and what we've been doing to save the Almonry. She says. So, the building itself, the Almonry, was constructed around late 14th, early 15th century, and it was the home of the almoner, and he was one of the Benedictine monks from the abbey, and it was his job from there to distribute alms to the poor and needy of the town, but also to the many pilgrims who would come to the abbey and to the parish churches of Evesham. Following the dissolution, the Almonry and the lands were gifted to the Hoby family, who were favourites of Henry VIII. And the Hobys then leased the Almonry to Philip Ballard, who was the last abbot of the abbey. And he was allowed to live there, almost kind of his reward for seeing through the dissolution, which allowed Henry to take over the land and take all the riches. Following the Hobys' tenure at the Almonry, it was sold to many, many different families down the years. And then in the 17th century, it was sold to the Rudge family. The Rudge family, obviously, a very big, prominent family in Evesham, huge landowners, obviously still very involved in Evesham land now. And during that time, it became a home. We think it might have been an inn at one point. There's always been a rumour that the Almonry was essentially a pub, which is quite nice. And I think actually where my office was probably one of the stables at one point. Kind of says a lot about me. What I put here, these are just some old images that we've got of the Almonry. So you can see already some of the changes that it's gone through. So this picture down in the bottom corner here, this is the rear view of the Almonry. Above it again is another rear view of the Almonry, but you can see it was fully rendered. There's obviously windows missing that are in the top picture. And you can see where it's been expanded out to the sort of the right-hand side of this picture, which is what is our new build sort of toilets and what have you now. The picture above it from the back, the Almonry was actually used as a film set. This was a film, I think it was about 1926, called The King's Highwayman. It's an old black and white. So we did, we kind of made Hollywood-ish at some point. And then again, these again are photos and images of the front of the building. Again, you can see at the top, it was fully rendered. So, it was mainly the Victorians, really, who ripped the render off and revealed the black and white and did the whole black and white thing, which we tend to think now as quintessentially medieval or Tudor. It's not actually, it's just a bit of a Victorian invention. And it's highly likely, actually, that the plaster work was painted, and part of the project is hopefully, if you can find a trace of painted plaster anywhere, there's a good chance we could actually get it repainted. My money's on yellow ochre. I kind of think it looked quite good in yellow ochre, but that's just me. Oh, keep this on the wrong side, sorry, apologies. So, as a home, we've got some images here of the building. If you're familiar with the building, it was a home for many, many years. This picture here actually is a tea room. This was a tea room run by the Bramfield sisters, and they were the sisters of the estate manager, the land manager for the Rudge family. They ran a tea room. The picture above it, that is what is now set up as the Victorian kitchen display, but again, somebody's living room, a bedroom, and I love this one at the bottom. This is Mr. Birch, who was one of them who lived at the Almonry, and you can see that is the Tudor fireplace in the Abbey room, and that fireplace was carved to commemorate the marriage of Prince Arthur, and that, he stuck a range in there and he sat there drinking his tea. I just think it's a brilliant photo. I absolutely love that photo. In 1929, the Rudge family sold the Almonry to the then Evesham Borough Council. And there was a proviso in the sale that it would one day become a museum. Obviously, things changed and what have you. The house was lived in all the way through. During the war years, it was an ARP station. The WVS were based out of there. And the house was actually lived in until the 1970s. It became a museum in 1957 when the Vale of Evesham Historical Society were granted the use of 2 rooms for a season to see how it goes, and it never stopped. And it's grown and grown, and eventually the museum has taken over pretty much the whole building now. You can visit all of it. I will say, as far as I'm aware, it's the only building of its age and type that you can fully access in the town. So it's a really, really important building. Now, in terms of our collections, we have some really significant collections. We might only be a small town museum, but our collections are stunning. Here we've got the Anglo-Saxon burial suite, or 2 parts of it, that was found on Bennett's Hill in Offenham. So we have the beautiful cruciform brooch and the some of the amber beads that were found. We also have beautiful prehistoric artefacts. So this is a flint hand axe. And we've got some really good archaeological examples, to the point I think it's that one. The rest of that collection is actually at the British Museum. So we have really, really significant items in our collection. We also have beautiful documents in our collection. So this one down the side here, this is a detail from the side of our town charter. Evesham Town Charter dates from 1605, and it's actually at the moment in store at the Hive, but it's 5 pages long. We only ever used to have 1 page displayed. It's 5 pages long. And it's all handwritten, and it's all heavily decorated. It's absolutely beautiful. In the centre is some detail from our 14th century Psalter. It's the Evesham Psalter. It's got the calendar in there. You know, we can sort of map how they went to church, how they marked their days back in the 14th century. And over on the far side is the Evesham Mappamundi, for want of a better word. And this is a map of the world drawn by the Evesham monks in around 1390. This makes it absolutely contemporary with the Almonry. This just shows their view of the world. So right at the centre, that large church is Jerusalem, right at the heart. At the very top there, you've got the abbot in his chair. Weirdly, the UK is this bit down here, and like London's here, and Dover's up here. It's completely skewed, absolutely all twisted on its head. Absolutely fascinating document. Now the original is actually at the College of Arms. They have it because during its lifetime somebody drew a pedigree on the back of the map. So the College of Arms aren't really interested in the map, they're just interested in the pedigree on the back. And it is my hope that when we get all the works done, we can borrow this back and bring it back to Evesham and have it on display, even if it's only for a short time, but we can have it on display in Evesham. One of my favourite objects that we have is this, the Evesham Bible. I don't know if you've seen the Evesham Bible. It's a Matthew Bible. It was one of about 1,500 copies that was commissioned by Henry VIII with the idea of placing one in parishes around the country. Our copy's really special because it has been annotated all the way through. There's lots of bits of marginalia and what have you. But there is a handwritten description of the dissolution of Evesham Abbey. And it tells you exactly what the monks were doing at the time the soldiers went in. And it's, you know, it's really, well, we had Lucy Worsley filming it, so it must be special. But what's really intriguing about it is when you turn over some of the pages, you have this. This is sheet, this is music, handwritten music. This was written by one of the monks. So, why do we need this work? Well, we're Grade 1 listed, and we were put on the Heritage at Risk Register in 2016. The initial sighting is for rot at sole plate level, which is the bit where the timber framing meets the stone base. We were originally put down as a priority D, which is quite low down. It means slow decay, no real plans in place, but it's okay, it'll tick along. This is the latest assessment, and you can see we've gone to priority B. Our condition is very bad, and we're at immediate risk of further rapid deterioration or loss. Solution agreed, but not yet implemented. The only one above this is an A, which is exactly the same, but no solution agreed. So where we're at now is absolute priority. We need to get this building saved. So how did we get here? We started off with things like tile. I've got to stop calling them tiles, I've been told off, they're called slates. We have slate slips. And what would happen is they would fall off the roof, they'd slip off, leave a gaping hole, we'd get water ingress, we'd have leaks inside the museum, we'd have to move collections and what have you. This was a favourite day of mine, where we had a slate fall from one roof elevation and it fell straight into another. So we had a hole at the top and we had a hole further down, and water pouring through both at the same time. It was a really special day, that was. But this is a common theme of what we have to put up with this. We've also had issues with our infill panels. So you can see this top picture here where there is literally a panel hanging out. And that is a risk, not only to the building, but also to anybody walking past or under it. What we did discover with this when we called the people in to repair it is actually those panels are now cement. So in the past, somebody's taken out the lime plaster and replaced it with cement. Cement has an adverse effect on the building in that it's incredibly heavy. It's not breathable. If water gets behind it, water stays there. It doesn't come out. And it can also be quite acidic and not, in terms of a timber frame building that should be able to breathe and move, cement will not do that. So we removed the cement, and underneath we found lath. These pictures are actually really good quality laths, believe it or not. But a lot of the lath was incredibly woodworm ridden or just completely disintegrated and rotten because the cement had kept the water in. And also this here, this picture on the far end, this is a jetty beam. So if you're at the back of the building, there's like an overhang and there's a wooden beam that basically goes underneath the bottom of it. That's fractured. It's not just bent, it's actually fractured. And it wasn't just outside, we had issues inside as well. So this is a panel above the staircase that goes up, and fortunately this one was lime plaster, but it was again coming away from the wall, so we had to take it out and replace it. What we did find underneath was the original wattle and daub. So that's helped us kind of identify some of the construction techniques used in the building. It also helps to date the building as well. This picture here actually shows how much the timber frames move. So this whole section here is actually a peg that should be inside a joint. And you can see not only has it come loose, but it's actually floating free. And I'm not quite sure how much of this dust is in between either. So the timber frame has shifted massively. The whole building has moved hugely. And just at the bottom there, an example exactly of the state of some of the lath we discovered. So what did we do about it? Well, in 2020? Yes, 2020. I secured a grant from Historic England for, it was the COVID-19 Heritage at Risk grant. And basically it allowed for us to carry out some surveys on the building. So I have to check my list here because we had a lot done. We had a dendrochronology survey, which is essentially tree ring counting. We had a structural survey, a timber frame survey, a level 3 historic building survey. I think that was it for that one. And basically we had for about 3 days these experts from all over the country literally crawling all over the building. This is George Nash, who did the standing building survey. He discovered, I can never say this, apoplectraic marks, otherwise known as witch marks. So you can see here, there's like it's like an M, that's called a Marian mark. And they were drawn to invoke the blessings of the Virgin. And you would find them on fireplaces, windows, door frames and what have you. The term witch marks is, I get told off for using witch marks because they're not witch marks. They weren't there to dispel witches or evil spirits like that. They were generally there to bring in light and to invoke the blessings of the Virgin and sort of good health and good wishes and what have you. We also discovered these amazingly stunning beams up in the roof structure. Sort of referred to as antler beams, and you can see why, the shape of them, absolutely stunning. We didn't know they existed up there. Absolutely beautiful. So, where do we go from there? Those surveys that we had done really, really highlighted how bad the building was. And we knew that we needed to do something and do something quickly. Now the plan had always been to go to the lottery and to do a great big bid to the lottery. But following COVID, during the pandemic, the lottery basically said we're not doing grants, we're just focusing on COVID recovery and supporting businesses through COVID and what have you. And so their books were essentially closed to us. Fortunately, just after the pandemic in 2021, DCMS opened up what's called the MEND Fund. And this was a capital fund aimed at museums for vital infrastructure and essential maintenance, urgent maintenance works. And we fell into those categories. We really needed to apply for this fund. It was a very small fund actually. The first round was only 18.8 million, which sounds a lot, but that was open to every single museum in England to apply for. So it doesn't go very far, and you could apply for up to £5 million as well. It was a very competitive process. You had to write an expression of interest first. If they accepted that, they would invite you to apply, and there were only over 50 people, 50 organisations invited to apply in each round. So the first round I applied, we didn't even get through the expression of interest range. The second time we got invited to apply but got knocked back. So third time lucky. So we applied for a third time. And as part of the process you have to have a visit from Historic England. So we had the visit from Historic England and pretty much spent the day with their representative going through the project, showing her around the building, talking about what we wanted to do, the work we'd done in the past and what have you. And she went away and she prepared a report and she came back and she said, look, I'm going to be honest, I don't think you're going to get the money in this round because I think your project has too much risk. There's too many unknowns. And it's always the same with a historic building. If any of you live in old buildings, you know, or if you've been involved with historic buildings, you know full well, the minute you take the roof off, suddenly it's like a can of worms that's been opened up. And she said, you know, with a building like this, with the costs involved in repairing and restoring a building like this, it's too risky. And I don't think you've got enough money in your budget to cover those risks. So I kind of get a bit down in the doldrums thinking, oh, this has failed, this has failed. That lady went on maternity leave. Another lady came in covering her maternity, and I got talking to her, and she said, well, you know, you've submitted your application, but this is what you can do in the interim. So I then I approached Witchaven, who have money from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and approached them about a grant. And after a bit of conversation and submitting an application, they granted us £50,000. Historic England came back to us and said, apply to us as well, and they gave us another £16,000. And that was for what we call the Enabling Project. So for the Enabling Project, what we needed to do was reduce those risks. So we had to do some more investigations. And our biggest risk was the roof, because we didn't know what was underneath it. We weren't quite sure how old it was, what state the construction was. So working with our architects and what have you, we agreed to create what's called pockets. So where you can see the green squares, I don't know how clearly you can see the outline of the roof there, but where the green squares were, that was where we would agree to open up pockets, which meant just opening up small sections of the roof, just to look at the condition of the slates, condition of the pegs, the battens, see inside the roof, get a good close look at the timber framing and what have you. So we got the scaffolding up. This is scaffolding on the front and on the back, and we went up to have a look. And you can see here, this is one of the roof sections where we've just removed one slate. You can see the depth of the slate there. What you will see on the roof is you will only see this bit. This area here I've learned is called headlap, and this bit here is called side lap. This is a massive learning curve for me. I'm a curator, I put things in boxes, make nice labels, do exhibitions. I'm now having to learn all this building stuff. It's interesting, but it's a learning curve. So, what you can see here, this is my hand against this roof slate. And you can see how big these are. This single slate alone probably weighs 6 to 7 kilos. It's Cotswold stone. They're big, big, heavy things. And I would play you the video in the middle, but it doesn't really won't work because of we can't get any. Oh, there we go. Oh, it is going to work. You won't be able to hear it, but this was video I took up on the roof. And you can kind of see there's a pocket there that we opened up. This is David, one of our experts, just replacing one of the slates, and they're just clearing them up. We found a bus ticket inside the roof, which is quite bizarre. And that's a little sneak peek. And that's the team getting together after the enabling week just to see how we all got on. So inside the roof, you can see here, this was taken, so the pocket opened up here. I put my hand in with my phone. This is one of the rafters inside. And you can see the deterioration there. You can also see all the holes from beetle infestation. And this one here, you can see here where the stone is actually starting to delaminate and actually crumbling and pulling apart. Hence why we're having some of the slate slipping off. What is interesting is, you think about the size of these things. So they're, this big, they weigh 6 or 7 kilos. They are held on by this. And that is a single wooden peg. And that's all it is, it's an oak peg. And that oak peg rests on top of a batten. It's not drilled in, it's not secured in, it just rests. And it's there by gravity and grace of God, basically. And that's all that's holding it on. So if these pegs break, you're likely to have more of a chance of a slippage. Hopefully the friction of the other slates underneath to the top and the side of it will hold it in, but you're more likely to get a slip. And this one, actually, they took this one out, and as they turned it over, the peg just disintegrated away, just fell away. So as part of the enabling, we also had our panels, every single panel on the outside of the building was tested to see what it was made of. We did find some with some wattle and daubing, traces of lime plaster, but most of it, if not 99% of it, is cementitious. It's cement, so we need to get that off. So I obviously like that scaffolding photo a lot because I've used it twice. Good advert for Alan Wilkes as well. We also had some archaeology done. Now these were just some test pits we had done as part of the preparation for the main project, because we might need, if we needed to do some groundworks and what have you, we need to know what's out there. So we had 3 test pits dug in the garden. We didn't find any archaeology, but I will say the soil in the Almonry garden is absolutely beautiful. It's exquisite. I was very tempted to take a barrow or 2 home. It's so nice. It's lovely. But yeah, no archaeology. But then I suppose, after 600 years of being lived on and what have you, maybe you're not going to find an awful lot. And then, for me, this is probably, I'm finding it all incredibly exciting, but this to me is very exciting. I was a big fan of Fake or Fortune. This was paint, we paid for paint analysis to be done. So in the hallway, in the main hall in the Almonry, the beams and things still have traces of red paint on them. And we also have, both in situ and samples of, is this beautiful sort of carved decorative wood, which would have gone round sort of just above head height all the way around the hall. So we had a paint conservator come in, and she's taken samples from all of this. And also we discovered this, it's still in situ, this kind of quatrefoil painted design inside one of the cases. So she sampled all of that. She came back to me today, she's just about finishing her report, but she sent me some fascinating photographs of the analysis of the paint. You can see it, it's just stripes of paint and layers of paint over the years. And she's able to go through those and identify the pigments and what have you. So she'll be able to say, at least give us an era or a decade or something of when those paints were put in. So following that enabling work, again going back to our plan with the pockets, you'll notice that there's a sort of a dotted line there. That roof was identified as critical and needs to be stripped and temporarily covered as soon as possible. The weather, unfortunately, has been appalling and not ideal for stripping roofs off medieval buildings. Hopefully we're going to start in the next couple of weeks. But what we've got to do is strip both of these roofs here, and also this kind of weird, goes into gullies and what have you here as well. Because we don't have, at the moment, the time and the money to recover it with proper slates, we will be covering it with wriggly tin. That kind of, hillbilly shack tin. So it's not going to look pretty. It really isn't. The noise if it rains inside is probably going to be absolutely horrendous. But what it will do is it will give the building protection. It will give any damp areas a chance to dry. And also it'll be too hot for bats to take up any residence, which will be a good thing, because we don't really want to be having bats in the building, because that just puts delays on things. So, where are we now? Well, we did it. We got the money, 2 million, which, relief, massive, massive relief. It means we can save the building. And that is it, absolutely essentially, we can save the Almonry. So yeah, Arts Council, in their absolute wisdom, gave us £2,173,500, because that 500 is really important. The Town Council will be match funding, which I'm sure you're all aware of. And so overall, we'll have over £2.25 million to spend on this project. So what are we going to do with it? Well, we need to strip every single roof and redo all the roofs. So it's every single part you can see. Obviously, you take out the section we'll have already done, but every single bit needs to be redone. We think from the enabling we can probably salvage around 40% of the existing slates, but we will need to get more. As a Grade 1 listed building, we have to replace like for like, so that means identifying the quarry. Not just any quarry, it's got to be Cotswold stone, and it's got to be the right colour Cotswold stone, or as close to the right colour as possible. It's pretty difficult when there's only probably about 4 quarries we can choose from. But it's a challenge, and it's one that we're going to meet. So I'm just going to take you through the plans now, just of the different elevations. So this is the north elevation, or the front of the building as you're coming down Vine Street. All the panels will be replaced, the chimney will be repointed and worked at, all the cement or the mortar lines will be redone because they've been repointed with cement over time. Again, this is a bit of a strange angle, you won't really see this unless you kind of round the back of the Almonry. But again, these timber panels, these infill panels here are in very, very poor condition. So they will all be stripped out, the timber framing fixed. There is a brick pillar here that is going to be looked at and just made sure that that's safe, because that actually holds under the jetty area. From the back of the building, again, same thing. It's just timber framing, infill panels, replacing the mortar. All the windows are going to be looked at. They're going to have all their glazing checked. They're going to be refurbished rather than replaced. We're not going to start putting in new PVC double glazing or anything like that. But they're going to be made weather tight, which would be quite nice. We did have a standing joke during COVID that we didn't have to worry about ventilation, ventilating the building, because there were so many holes and gaps under doors. It was fine. So, and again, this is the west elevation. So again, it's the same kind of thing. Doors, windows, timber frame, infill panels, mortar. It's not showing up as clearly on here as it is on my screen, but actually there's a lot of red areas. Most of the building has been coloured in red because of the amount of work that needs to be done. This is absolutely a huge project. And then again, this is the West Yard. So this is the old civic, this is the civic room and what have you. And again, it's the same thing. Chimneys, windows, doors, mortar, infill panels, roof, the works, the full lot. Oh, it's not the end. What we're also going to be doing as part of the works, it's not just the building, we're going to be replacing all our heating, replacing all our lighting. We're looking at energy efficient options. It's a conditional part of the grant, but also we feel that, you know, the building itself, once it's fully restored, will be pretty much carbon neutral. So let's not offset that by putting in inefficient heating and lighting. So it'll be new LED lighting, which will be low energy, more cost effective. The heating, we would ideally like to put in something like an air source heat pump. Being a timber frame building, that will be a challenge. Also being a listed building, it will be a challenge. So there's still some negotiation and work to do around that. But we will choose the best option for that project, that part of the project. But yeah, that's not the end, because that 2.1 million will only do the building repairs. Once we've repaired the building, we want to reopen the museum. We've got to reopen the museum, but we need to refurbish the museum. The cases that are in there are very old, they're very dated, and they're not appropriate for museum collections. They're not up to standard. So we need new cases. Where we can, we're going to improve access. It's not easy in a medieval building, but where we can, we want to improve things. We want to provide digital interpretation, so if somebody can't get round all the way around the building, we still want them to be able to access the information and to be able to engage with the collections as much as possible. As you can see, things are very cluttered, so we don't want to be in a completely empty building, but we want to look at the stories we tell. And you know, it's not up to me to tell you what stories you want to hear. So as part of this process, we're going to be working really closely with the community, because we want to co-curate these exhibitions and these displays. We want the people of Evesham to tell us what stories you want us to tell and help us to tell them. This isn't my museum. It's not the town council's museum. This is your museum. This is the Evesham Museum. On a base level, it's paid for by your taxes. You know, you should have a say in what goes on there. So I will be coming back and badgering you to talk about how we're going to take this forward and how we're going to create this new museum. And then finally, my plea. As Jill said, yes, we do still need to fundraise. You know, all the work we've done to get to the £2 million has helped. But there may be a shortfall. Something may happen, we don't know. You know, the way the weather's been at the moment, who knows what's going to happen. There may be an unexpected cost. But my initial thing is now I'm working towards this phase 2 project and getting the museum sorted for when we reopen and having a new museum. So we are still fundraising. There are ways you can help. I know I spoke to some of you just before Christmas about easy fundraising. So if you do shop online, if you sign up to Easy Fundraising and pick the Almonry as your cause, when you shop online, if you download the browser thingy, it will prompt you to ask for a donation. And the money doesn't come from you, it comes from the company. So every time you shop through Easy Fundraiser, if you go through the Easy Fundraiser, either through the app or through their browser on the website, the company you're buying from knows that Easy Fundraiser have recommended them, and they pay Easy Fundraiser, who then pay us. So far, I've done it for work. We use Viking Direct to buy our stationery. I signed up to Easy Fundraising. I click on donation every time. I've raised 50 quid ordering stationery for work. And it's not cost us anything. It's not cost me personally, it's not cost the town council, it costs Viking as a thank you for continuing to use their service. So it's not going to make us millions, but you know, literally every little helps. You could buy some exquisite goods in our gift shop. We have a selection of goods in the shop that are specifically for the fundraising project. So we have our exclusive Almonry jigsaw. There are only 25 copies of it, so it is absolutely a limited edition. We have some posters, one of the map of the world and one of the bell tower, which was done by local artist Rohan. We have an exclusively designed tea towel, fridge magnet, postcards. We have the Pillow Fight Warriors. We've got the new David Cox book on Simon de Montfort, on the cult of Simon de Montfort. Very, very good book. So yeah, so you could do that. Events, we are going to be running events. If you would like to get involved with events, or if you've got any ideas for events or fundraising, please do get in touch. And the bear singing at the end is basically just an encouragement to please just go out and shout about us. Please spread the word, because the more people who know what we're doing, the more impact we can make in terms of what we deliver, but hopefully we can encourage more people to support us in whatever way they can. If you want to get in touch with me, you can on my email address there, or just ring the Almonry, that's just the main Almonry number, or pop in. I work Monday to Friday. If I'm not available, the staff will look after you and will take your name and number and what have you, and I will get back to you. If I am around, I'll be more than happy to have a quick chat and what have you. And that's it. Thank you very much. If anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything, or if you want to go away and have a think and contact me later, you are more than welcome.